what if I am someone who is depressed, or if I'm someone who maybe struggles with this, what should I be looking out for? Like, what should my family be looking out for? Because really, at the cause of this is something we want to try to prevent and bring awareness to. And part of that is to look for signs of addiction or signs of maybe a proclivity towards that.
Yeah, well, you brought up a very important issue, which is not just substances. There are all kinds of behaviors. In fact, any person, any substance, any event or activity that we do can turn into an addiction. If you're using that behavior, that activity to cope with things, sometimes it's stress, just like in the case of the pandemic, sometimes it's emotional pain and trauma. And so if we're using that in a way, and there's some signs, and I'll tell you some of them, that can tell us this is an issue. I need to either, if I still have control, stop it or control it, or I'm going to get into real trouble. So some of the signs would be, for instance, we call it the first level of addiction or dependence. Before it really turns into a dependence, we call it abuse or misuse. That's where, people start to do the activity, whether it is shopping, as you're saying, or whether it's using their phone or drinking alcohol or whatever it is. If they start to do it in a regular basis and excessively, using a lot of their time, and then they start to see some things. Maybe they're endangering themselves because of that. Like, for instance, it's impacting their health in a way that's not helpful, or they are actually failing to fulfill some responsibilities, like their work, their studies are not getting done, or they're spending too much, or it's really having a negative impact in their life and their responsibilities, sometimes also jeopardizing their relationships. So some of these signs, if this is kind of becoming excessive in terms of time, or in how much emphasis is done or spent in that behavior, or doing that activity, this is something that should warn people, because right now in that level, it's not yet a dependence, it's not yet an addiction, but it can turn into it. When it becomes a dependence is when the person loses control. They can no longer say, okay, I'm gonna stop it. Well, they want to, but then once it turns into a psychological, physiological dependence, then they're gonna need help outside themselves to really break away.